Can you explain how this offset on rescinding money to the IRS can actually cost more?
Of course. So the first thing is that the House is saying in order to pay for emergency spending for something that they support, aid to Israel, we need to find offsets. And given our very bad fiscal situation, that 100% makes sense. Where the logic breaks down is the fact that the offset they've chosen is taking funding away from the IRS. And this funding is targeted to close something called the tax gap, which is taxes that are owed but are not paid. And so those resources were going to go to increase the collection of taxes in a way that actually generates more money than the cost. And so what the Congressional Budget Office has just confirmed that this would lead to actually making the deficit worse, not better. So thumbs up to the idea of paying for emergency spending, even if it's urgent and necessary. Our fiscal situation's bad, so it makes sense to pay for it. But a big thumbs down for doing so with a so-called offset, which actually would involve making the revenue situation and deficit worse.
Well, you know, when this CBO score came out, you're the first person we thought of. Annmarie quoted you yesterday, and I'd point you to the IRS commissioner. Daniel Werfel said this week these offsets would not only add to the deficit in the style that the CBO suggested, but would end up costing $90 billion because of the lower scrutiny on what he calls tax evasion at the highest levels of wealth. So confirming your point, Maya, I guess I would ask you, what other offsets would be acceptable? What would be preferred? Tom Cole today says there's all kinds of unspent money that could be used.
100%. I agree with that. In fact, we're putting out a list of potential offsets that could go for all of the spending that people are looking at for the end of this year, from Israel to Ukraine to the border. So let's just start with some specific policies. We could look at a number of areas of healthcare savings where there's, in fact, bipartisan agreement that we could get some savings out of health care. We could bring the spending caps that were agreed to in the Fiscal Responsibility Act down by just a tiny amount, or we could increase revenue. Say you have an offset revenue increase that just does a percentage across the board increase on income taxes or corporate income taxes. It will be well less than 1% that you'd need to offset the cost of these things. The basic point is you go back to the notion of budgeting. And what that means is if something's worth doing, it is worth paying for. How would you pay for it? If the House Republicans really want to focus on making it a little bit more political and taking away some of President Biden's recent initiatives, there are things they could look at. Again, the IRS money moves us backwards, but the student loan forgiveness issues that he has just put out, that could be one of the areas where there's additional savings and a policy that they didn't agree to. Offsets are hard. It means raising taxes or cutting spending. That's how you budget. And so it really is important we start looking at those. We'll continue to put more lists of offsets out through the coming weeks to help Congress if they actually are willing to pay for these things, which would be an important turnaround move on their part.
Today, we also heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson about the November 17th potential government shutdown. He talked about a ladder approach for continuing resolutions or to keep the government open. Do you think that could work?
You know, basically, there is the issue that Congress only moves with action-forcing moments. And what this would do is continue to put pressure points to make decisions to pass appropriations. And let me take a step back and say some of the requests that have come out of the House on all of this, passing appropriations bills one at a time, not going to these big omnibuses that are filled with spending that people don't even have time to look at. These requests, going back to regular order and actually doing budgets, makes an absolute ton of sense. And the problem is they don't do regular order and they only make decisions by action forcing moments, which is why we end up having things like debt, government shutdown countdowns or government default shutdowns. We have to change our governing from crisis. So this solution to me seems like it's actually putting in more mini crises. And what I'd rather work at is overhauling our budget process so that we have plans we can actually stick to. Starting with, Congress needs to pass a budget every year. This year, the House Budget Committee did put a budget out of committee, but much, much later than the deadline. The Senate Budget Committee never even bothered to do a budget. So the real way to start this is insisting on the budget process, putting in place automatic changes if they fail to pass budgets. But I think sort of these arbitrary and ongoing deadlines where you have to make choices and they end up being political showdowns between the two parties don't do anything to the broader goals, which are get Congress to work again and work together, put us on a more fiscally responsible path, and try to unify the country instead of having, constant division and dysfunction coming out of Capitol Hill.
Well, it seems you've redefined the concept of job security here, Maya. Our producers have been working on the math while you've been talking as we celebrate. And I suspect there's a party happening in that next room to celebrate your 20th year on this job. 20 years ago, look at this, Annmarie.
Remarkable.
Under $7 trillion in national debt. I'm sure I don't need to tell you, we're about $33 trillion now. That's been quite a 20 years of work, Maya. When you're celebrating your 40th, where is it going to be?
Can we go with, instead of you've done a really terrible job, can we go with it would have been worse? It could have been worse? I don't know. And I will tell you, it has not been an impressive period in terms of our fiscal situation. And I do see there as a somewhat disturbing correlation. I hope it's not causation.
I guess it could always be worse.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It could always be worse. But in all seriousness, Maya, is the issue down to the fact of just too much spending, or is it actually legislatures do not want to go through like the normal process that was there when you first started your job?
It's an excellent question. It's not about too much spending, because actually being fiscally responsible doesn't mean big government or small government. It means being willing to pay for the government you want. So if you are a big spender and you want a much larger government, you can be fiscally responsible as long as you're willing to pay for those programs. Just like you can be fiscally responsible and want a smaller government, but you can't get there by cutting taxes. You can only get there by cutting spending, and then you can cut taxes at the same time. The key is what we're doing in terms of borrowing. And right now we are in a bad habit of borrowing when we need to, like COVID or big recessions, but also borrowing when we don't need to. Under President Biden, under President Trump, both presidents oversaw huge run-ups of trillions of dollars in the national debt when the economy was strong and there was no economic reason to borrow. So what I would point out is that we are in the habit of both political parties doing things that are easy. They love to cut taxes. They love to grow spending. They don't like to pay for things, making up justifications, sort of the fiscal myths about why it's okay. And now I think the added challenge, why things have gotten so much worse, in addition to the complete failure and breakdown of regular order, is that we are so polarized. Both parties really have a difficult time cooperating. The only time we can see bipartisan legislation, if it's you're borrowing on both sides. So I'll trade you my borrowing for your borrowing. And so we double down on borrowing, and we can sometimes have bipartisan bills. We really, for economic and national security reasons, need to return to a willingness to budget, pay for the initiatives we want. We can spend more if we're willing to tax more or spend less elsewhere, but not borrow in a way that is really undermining kind of the fiscal foundation of our country.
Maya, just very quickly, I don't mean to put you on the spot like this, but in your 20 years, who was the worst offender?
I can't. I would love to answer, but I'm not going to. See, I've finally learned to be diplomatic after 2 decades of this. There's more than one.